devil are you doing here? Who's that?
This is my sister, Francis Pocock. We were told this was your tent. Curtsy to his lordship now, Fanny.
Your most humble servant, Miss Pocock. I am charmed to meet your sister, but I fear you take me at something of a disadvantage.
Yes, that's a piece of luck. I couldn't think how I was to find you, but then we heard the British were encamped here and took a chance. Fortuna audaces fauet.
Perhaps your boldness will bring you fortune. You know Latin?
There's a great deal you don't know about me, sir. I mean, it's just been an incredible experience. I feel like people probably say this all the time, but Outlander as a production is just full of the kindest, loveliest, most welcoming people. So while it was an intimidating project to come onto, people couldn't have been more welcoming. And I mean, it was so long ago that we worked on it now that being able to watch it back, it's kind of bringing everything back, and it's been a really nice couple days. Well, I think a lot of her life is really controlled. She doesn't really have much of a sense of ownership of herself. She has to follow the rules of the world that she lives in, of the job that she has. But I think she can be quite impulsive. I mean, we see that with some of the things that she says. She's quite tongue-in-cheek. She can be quite blunt, a bit standoffish at times. But I mean, that's all for good reason. She's kind of been forced to be that way. But I think in this episode specifically, she sees an opening, and it's the best one that she has in the situation that she's in, and so she takes a risk and she runs with it and hopes that it will work out. Well, Charles did a very great job of playing the ignorance and the naivety of that. I think Jane is definitely a bit of a wake-up call for him in terms of, like you said, the way that people outside of his circle have to live in that world. And I think Charles got a really great balance of someone that wants to learn to understand, but also someone who's through no fault of his own is finding it tough to understand that. But it's heartbreaking to think that someone can live in such a controlled space and have hardly any sense of self and gets this chance at what is like a sliver of freedom, only to then be thrown something like that and not really knowing the wider world that she's entering. Well, I think that's really important to hear. It's important for everyone to be told their worth. And I think, unfortunately for Jane, she's been in this world for so long, as we find out in episode 14. She's been forced into this for nearly a decade. And so I think she has quite a skewed sense of self. I think she's independent and she knows how to stand up for herself. But I do think that a lot of her worth is attributed to how men see her and how much time they want to spend with her. That's what she's been told to internalize, I think. And so it is a shock for her to hear somebody saying nice things about her and telling her that that's not the be all and end all of who she is. Whether she believes that completely at first, I don't think she does. I think it's just one of those things that people say and you flit it off because you know yourself better than anyone else. I think it's definitely a bit of both. I think she still has this sense of honor in terms of the transaction that could be done. But I think a part of her also knows that she's developing feelings for him, and she's pretty sure that he's developing feelings for her. And I think as well in a situation like that, you seek comfort wherever you can find it. And I think that while William could be a client for her or just another man, I think he, in that moment, could give her the comfort that she wants, as well as a bit of fun. I think she likes throwing things his way and seeing how he reacts. He gives her some good reactions, so it's a bit of both. It's a really tricky one, because I think there's so much miscommunication between the two of them, because they both clearly are interested in each other in even a little bit. And I think in that moment Jane is trying to suggest that to her it's not just a transaction anymore. There is something there that she is interested in pursuing, but I think she's so used to having her guard up for so long and not being able to trust anyone that she can't see herself immediately being vulnerable and open with him in that moment. And I think that's something that she probably later regrets, but it's, once you're hardwired into something, it's really hard to change that. I think so. She could have either lied or continued to try and run away from it, and instead she chooses to be very open and vulnerable about the decisions that she's made. And I think as well, Jane is a character. She she sometimes makes decisions that turn around and end up biting her on the butt a little bit, but I think she likes to provoke people, and I think sometimes she likes saying things to see how people will respond, and I think she's found that in William. And so maybe a self-destructive part of her wants to see how he'll react, and if she does bare herself to him so openly, to see how he would respond. And I think that what we see in that episode is William being a genuine nice and understanding person when it comes to the reasons as to why she did things. Well, I think the majority of the decisions that Jane makes, they're all motivated by Fanny and making sure that she's safe and she's happy and healthy. And I think most of her life has been spent protecting her sister, because she is the most important thing to her. You know, they don't have a sense of identity. They don't have their own homes. Like, their relationships are very sparse. And I think Fanny is the person that she holds on to the tightest. So I think ultimately everything she does is for Fanny. Yes, maybe there is a part of her that thinks, oh, well, this could actually work out quite well with William if he does take us in as we hope. But I think that in that moment she doesn't really have any other options, and William just happens to be the one that could potentially take them in. And I think you're right, you do get to see a bit more of Jane and the depth of who she is as a character this episode, because you get to see her caring side, you get to see her protective side, whereas before we see the jokester and her in her professional setting, if you can call it that. But this episode you definitely see more vulnerability with her, and her as an older sister, which it's really lovely. It kind of makes you realize why she is the way she is because she is the protective older sister. I think he is the only person that they are relying on at that point. And I think to have the sole person that's there to protect you from the other soldiers potentially, to make sure that you actually have somewhere to stay, for them to suddenly not be traceable and not be contactable is obviously going to be a really scary thing, especially considering that person knows the things that you've told them, and whether you know that they've been taken captive or if you just think they've disappeared. I think it's a very scary turn of events for the two of them, and Unfortunately, though, I think it's a feeling that they've felt a lot throughout their lives, feeling scared, alone, lost as well at points. And I think it's sad that that's something that they have to experience again, having found what they thought was safety.